On a beautiful evening in a bustling city, crowds gathered to welcome the arrival of the new year. The local government joined in the celebration, organizing a spectacular fireworks display set to begin precisely at midnight. Yet amid the chorus of fireworks exploding across the sky, hidden sniper rounds echoed through the night, randomly picking off unsuspecting civilians for reasons nobody understood. Not far from the scene stood a small restaurant where a young police officer named Falco had arrived, following a report that an elderly woman had been quietly sitting there for over 3 hours without ordering anything. Before she could resolve this minor disturbance, Eleanor received a code G25 emergency call, alerting her to a dangerous situation nearby. Wasting no time, Eleanor left for the new location. While en route, updates informed her that there were already 25 shooting victims, 17 of whom had died on the spot. Eleanor proceeded to an apartment on West Fayette Street, Unit 9B, where one of the shooting victims had been found. She immediately switched off the lights to prevent a possible follow-up shot from the sniper. Shortly thereafter, the forensics team arrived and began using specialized scanning equipment to pinpoint the origin of the gunfire, which appeared to come from a building across the street. Before the investigators could fully confirm these findings, a sudden explosion rocked the apartment, throwing the entire building into chaos and forcing a mass evacuation of its occupants. Eleanor took it upon herself to film the exiting residents, hoping the footage might later assist in identifying any potential suspects linked to the brutal shootings. Once she had helped evacuate several people, Eleanor entered the now damaged apartment. Along with other officers, she forced open the door to the room where the explosion had occurred. Despite thoroughly combing the premises, they found no one inside, nor any tangible evidence that might aid their investigation. The air, saturated with carbon dioxide, caused Eleanor to lose consciousness. When she came to, she met a man named Jeffrey Lamar, a detective in charge of solving the grisly murders. Although Eleanor and Lamar had not yet been formally introduced, he quickly noticed her presence and recognized her initiative in responding to the crisis. The scene shifts to the police station, where Lamar briefs his assembled team. Determined to bring the sniper to justice, he vows to pursue any lead and use every resource. He emphasizes that the suspect is highly methodical, so meticulous in fact that investigators have found no minor errors or giveaways thus far. Later, in the station's break room, Lamar approaches Eleanor to ask her opinion on what the shooter's next move might be, lamenting the lack of any discernible pattern. Eleanor suggests that perhaps the shooter follows no specific plan. Instead, he may be driven purely by a warped desire to take the lives of random individuals. Intrigued by her clear reasoning, Lamar thanks Eleanor before walking away, taking the opportunity to introduce himself properly. The next day, Eleanor receives a phone call from someone on Lamar's team, informing her that he wants to meet at a nearby cafe. Once there, Lamar discusses the ongoing case and confides that he plans to recruit both Eleanor and Mackenzie, another officer, for his investigative unit. He openly admits he no longer trusts his existing team fully. Later, at a formal team meeting, Lamar and his detectives go over the latest data gathered from the crime scene. They discover that the shooter's rifle is approximately 40 years old, making it difficult to trace given that it precedes most current law enforcement databases. Afterward, Lamar and his team visit the morgue where the victims' bodies have been collected. Strikingly, the victims share no common link or pattern, leaving Lamar unable to establish a clear motive. In the midst of this grim assessment, a uniformed officer bursts in to report that a suspect has been located. Rushing to the identified site, Lamar confronts an officer named Frank, demanding a more thorough explanation of how and why Frank pursued this suspect, a teenage boy who tried to flee an apartment search, threatened to kill anyone nearby, and was said to have watched violent extremist videos at night. Upon raiding his apartment, the frightened teenager took his own life by jumping from a window. Yet the details contradict all the established evidence, leading Lamar to conclude that this boy was not the true sniper. Furious at Frank's hasty actions, Lamar emphasizes that the teenager lacked the type of rifle used in the mass shooting, confirming he was an unrelated suspect. Departing that location, Lamar refocuses on 3 individuals he believes could possess crucial knowledge, or might even be tied to the New Year's Eve massacre. He arranges to question Lang, Dimitri, and Abraham, all painters who had worked in the apartment building where the bombing took place. He inquires about their whereabouts during the celebrations, their backgrounds, and any details that might connect them to the crime. The scene shifts to a crowded mall. A man wearing a hooded jacket appears, behaving oddly as he tries to grab food off someone else's plate. Security personnel notice him and move in, but in an instant, panic explodes. Gunfire tears through the air, leaving a harrowing trail of bodies. When Eleanor arrives, she is horrified at the sight of the victims strewn throughout the mall. In the security room, Lamar reviews CCTV footage recorded just before the mall massacre. He studies the gunman's movements, noting a probable preference for a vegetarian diet, drawn from certain glimpses in the footage, and observing how the shooter discarded his clothes in a trash bin moments before opening fire. Determined to uncover evidence of the killer's identity, Eleanor and Mackenzie head to the landfill where that particular mall's trash is deposited. After sifting through piles of refuse, they finally find an item of clothing believed to belong to the gunman. Upon returning to the station, they discover that the shocking mall footage has already been broadcast on the news in disturbing detail, inciting widespread alarm throughout the city. This media attention also prompts local authorities to urge residents to report any suspicious behavior among family members, hoping to prevent further attacks. Building on these efforts, Lamar's team receives a tip-off call threatening another mass shooting. They plan a sting operation at a supermarket, preparing to arrest whomever shows up in response to the anonymous threat. Eleanor is assigned to help evacuate shoppers. Unfortunately, an elderly customer with hearing and reading difficulties slows the evacuation. Sensing a trap, the conspirators realize the police have staged an operation, and a gun battle ensues.
Falco!
We're good!
Basically saying it's a prank gone wrong. Tracy confirmed it.
Realizing that the raid has gone badly, Lamar is summoned before a high-level board of officials. Infuriated by the disastrous outcome, they terminate Lamar from the case. Because Eleanor is closely associated with him, she faces indirect fallout from his dismissal. Frustrated that the officials fail to understand the depth of the crisis, Eleanor feels deeply unsettled. Unable to let go of the puzzle, she returns home and takes a long shower, her mind still racing. Gazing at the ceiling, she experiences an insight about a lead that might point to the killer. Subsequently, Eleanor tracks down a man, Lang, who might have had direct contact with the unknown sniper. She notices inconsistencies in Lang's statement regarding his painting jobs. He claimed to be in 2 places at once on a specific day. It emerges that Lang outsourced his second painting contract, a man who matches multiple points from the investigative profile. According to Lang, Dean is an experienced marksman and a committed vegetarian. He once worked at a slaughterhouse but refused any payment for the painting job in question. Lang admits he was too frightened to confess earlier, fearing Dean might harm his family if the truth came out. Looking to confirm Dean's appearance, the team calls in a police sketch artist so they can distribute a composite portrait. With this new sketch, Eleanor and Lamar locate a woman named Ramona, who used to work with Dean at the slaughterhouse. Ramona describes Dean as extremely antisocial and reclusive. She claims he once murdered a co-worker in 1998 and served 2 years in prison. The case was reopened in 1999, but Dean got parole thanks to his father's connections with a Colonel Leopard and a General Benjamin Tass. Further records reveal that Dean's father, an instructor for the 75th Ranger Regiment, died in 2003. Armed with these revelations, Eleanor and Lamar head to a remote village to find the Posey family home, where Dean once lived. Upon arriving, Eleanor suggests calling for backup, but Lamar, still bitter over being dismissed, refuses to involve the local police. Soon the matriarch Mrs. Posey arrives in a pickup truck, honking loudly and confronting them. Initially she will not cooperate, but after considerable persuasion she agrees, on the condition that Dean be taken alive and sentenced properly, without any extrajudicial killing. While talking inside the house, Eleanor suddenly senses that Dean is hiding in a separate outbuilding, possibly a barn or tool shed. The moment they approach it, gunfire erupts.
No, don't! He'll shoot you! Don't move!
Dean shoots Lamar in the chest, killing him instantly. Mrs. Posey warns Eleanor to remain still if she wants to avoid meeting the same fate. Though terrified, Eleanor manages to persuade Mrs. Posey to help her communicate with Dean, hoping to either talk him into surrendering or leaving the area with his mother. Dean steps out and speaks with Eleanor. He demands that she execute him near his mother's body, after burning it, so that he may vanish from the world without leaving a trace. He then reveals the twisted motive behind his New Year's Eve massacre. He loathes how people greet each new year with raucous fireworks, drowning out the quiet and the darkness he finds so comforting. With all the celebratory noise, Dean feels robbed of his solitude beneath the stars. At that moment, additional police units surround the outbuilding, sparking another surge of violence. Dean believes Eleanor betrayed him, so he knocks her unconscious and drags her deeper into his hideout. As more officers move in, Dean ambushes them, killing several.
Shots fired! Shots fired from the shed!
During a desperate struggle, Eleanor manages to bite Dean's neck, tearing into his flesh. Mortally wounded, Dean does not strike back at her. Instead, he limps outside, leaving it behind and escaping from the police.
Eleanor!
He's alive.
State troopers down to the river.
Eleanor then comes out, injured but alive, and informs them that Dean has fled. Although he had managed to get quite far, the police eventually found him and demanded his surrender. However, still harboring hatred for others, Dean decided to shoot, but was killed before he could fight back. In the aftermath, the department holds a solemn ceremony honoring Jeffrey Lamar, with posthumous accolades for his heroic sacrifice. Meanwhile, Eleanor Falco, still wrestling with guilt and sorrow, receives a swift promotion to special agent. Behind closed doors, however, lies an undisclosed agreement. High-ranking officials, desperate to keep certain details out of the press, offer Eleanor her promotion in exchange for silence regarding a political figure's interference in the case. Though uneasy about the compromise, Eleanor views it as a chance to fix a broken system from the inside. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, because by subscribing you have supported me to make better videos. See you in the next video.